It's one of those powerful stories you see shared online, a modern legend about what happens when kindness stares fear right in the face. It's an inspirational tale that has been told with different names and in different towns, but the heart of it is always the same. This version is about a woman named Evelyn Carter, whose small act of courage supposedly set off a chain of events so incredible, it's become the stuff of internet folklore. The story goes that this small house, belonging to a lonely old woman, was about to get a visit from over 100 bikers. But they weren't there for trouble. They were there to repay a kindness that started in a brutal snowstorm just 24 hours earlier. It's a story about what happens when compassion wins out over judgment, and how family can be found in the most unlikely of places. To understand the incredible sight of 100 motorcycles lining a quiet country road, we have to go back to the night before. When the world was swallowed by a storm, and a desperate knock came on Evelyn's fragile door. Section 1, The Setup, A Lonely Life and a Raging Storm. Life for 78-year-old Evelyn Carter was a quiet rhythm of gentle habits. Her world had mostly shrunk to the four walls of the small house she'd shared with her late husband, Frank. It stood on the edge of a forgotten mountain highway, a lonely little guard against the rolling hills. Inside, the air was thick with memories. Photos of Frank in his Marine uniform, of their kids who now lived in faraway cities, and of grandkids she only saw on holidays lined the mantelpiece like silent ghosts of a fuller, louder life. Her days were marked by the slow tick of a grandfather clock. She'd wake with the sun, tend to her garden, and knit blankets for the local church. Her only real companion was a stray cat she'd named Shadow. By all accounts, she was a kind woman, but her life was a quiet, solitary song. Loneliness was her most constant, and least welcome, guest. The house was showing its age, much like Evelyn. The paint was peeling, the front porch sagged, and a cold draft always snaked through the old window frames. Frank had always taken care of things like that. Now that he was gone, the house didn't just feel empty, it felt vulnerable. That afternoon, the sky turned a foreboding slate gray. The wind, which usually just whispered, began to howl. Evelyn flicked on the kitchen radio, and the announcer's urgent voice confirmed her fears. A blizzard, sudden and severe, was hitting the mountains. All major roads were closing. Travelers needed to find shelter, and fast. Evelyn watched as the first flakes began to fall. Within an hour, the world outside had vanished into a swirling vortex of white. The snow fell with a fury, piling into deep, impassable drifts. The wind rattled the windows, and the old house groaned. She whispered a quiet prayer for anyone caught in the cold, never dreaming that the cold was about to come knocking. It started as a faint grinding noise, almost lost in the wind. It grew louder, the tortured sound of struggling engines. Peeking through her lace curtains, her heart started to race. Through the thick snow, she made out headlights, then the dark, hulking shapes of motorcycles. They weren't just passing, they had stopped right in front of her gate. Her breath caught. Men, large and imposing, were getting off their bikes. She counted them, 5, 10, 15. They were covered in snow, their leather jackets bearing patches she couldn't make out but instinctively knew belonged to a world far from her own. They were from a motorcycle club, the kind of club whose reputation made folks lock their doors a little tighter. They were stranded, their powerful machines defeated by ice and snow. Cold, sharp fear shot through Evelyn. Her first instinct: shrink away, turn off the lights, and pretend she wasn't home. These weren't the kind of strangers a woman alone should welcome. But then, she saw one of them stumble, his legs numb with cold. Another was trying to shield his face from the biting wind, his movements slow and exhausted. They weren't just intimidating figures anymore, they were people, freezing and desperate. Evelyn's fear went to war with her compassion. She thought of Frank. He was a Marine who believed you never leave a soul stranded. He would have opened the door in a heartbeat. He wouldn't have seen their jackets, he would have seen their need. Standing there, the choice became clear. Taking a deep breath, she walked to the door, turned the deadbolt, and pulled it open, spilling warm, golden light into the raging storm. Section 2, The Rising Action, a house filled with strangers. The wind and snow blasted into the hallway as 15 men turned toward the light. The man in front, who looked like their leader, had a thick, graying beard frosted with ice. His face was a roadmap of long miles, but his eyes held a weary desperation. "Ma'am," he rumbled, almost apologetically. "The road's impassable. We're stuck. We don't mean any trouble. We just need to get out of the storm." Evelyn clutched her shawl, her voice steady. "Cold is cold. It doesn't ask who you are. You can't stay out there. Come in." It was an invitation that hung in the air, a shock to men accustomed to wary glances and locked doors. The leader, who the others called Bear, looked at his men, then back at the small woman. He gave a slight nod, a silent order for respect. One by one, they stomped the snow off their boots and stepped inside. The house, so empty moments before, was suddenly full. It smelled of wet leather and road weariness. Yet, they moved with surprising care, shuffling awkwardly as if afraid their size might break something in Evelyn's delicate world. One biker, a giant of a man with tattooed arms, carefully steered his body around a tiny porcelain ballerina on a side table. Evelyn's fear melted away, replaced by purpose. "Put your wet things by the fire," she instructed. "I'll make some coffee. And I think I have some soup." Her pantry was nearly bare, but she found cans of beans, potatoes, and carrots. As she stirred the pot, the humble ingredients began to smell like a feast. The bikers settled in her small living room, dwarfing the floral furniture. They took the steaming mug she brought out with hands that were calloused but gentle. As they thawed, the tension eased. "You didn't have to let us in, ma'am," a younger biker said. "Most people wouldn't have." Evelyn just smiled. "My late husband Frank always said a locked door in a storm is a sin. Everyone deserves warmth." That simple sentence seemed to unlock something. The men started talking, sharing stories from the road. In turn, Evelyn found herself talking about Frank, about the life they'd built in this house. The bikers listened with a surprising reverence. Soon, a sound that hadn't been heard in that house for years filled the space: laughter. A gruff biker named Tank told a funny story, and the room erupted. Evelyn laughed with them, a real, full-bodied laugh. For the first time in a long time, her house wasn't a museum, it was a living, breathing place. She looked at the faces around her, weathered, tattooed, bearded, and she no longer saw a gang. She saw men. Sons, brothers, and fathers. Bear watched Evelyn, noticing her worn-out armchair and the slight flicker of the lights. He understood that this woman, who had so little, had given it all to them without a single question. In their world, a world of honor and loyalty, a debt like that was sacred. It had to be repaid. He quietly slipped out the back door into the blizzard, pulling out a satellite phone. He dialed a number. "It's Bear," he said. "We're snowed in, but we're safe. Listen, I found an angel up here. She took in 15 of us, no questions asked. Gave us everything she had." He paused, looking back at the warm glow in the window. "The family owes her a debt. A big one. Gather the brothers. All of them. As soon as the roads are clear, I need you at these coordinates. Dawn. We're going to fix this." He slipped back inside. The men were now stretching out on the floor, using their jackets as pillows. The house settled into a quiet hum of soft snores. Evelyn sat in her rocking chair, watching over this unlikely flock. By morning, the storm had broken. The bikers began to stir, folding the blankets neatly and leaving the house exactly as they had found it. As they got ready to leave, Bear tried to press a thick wad of cash into Evelyn's hand. She gently pushed it away. "Absolutely not. You were in need. That's not something you pay for. Bear looked at her, his eyes full of respect. We won't forget this, Evelyn, he said, using her name for the first time. I promise. She watched them ride off, the roar of 15 engines shattering the morning stillness. When they were gone, the silence that fell was heavier than before. The house felt huge and empty again. Section 3, the climax and resolution, a debt repaid. The rest of the morning felt like a strange dream. The house was clean, but the echo of laughter remained. The loneliness was back, and it felt worse than before. Around noon, she heard it. A low, distant rumble, like faraway thunder. It grew steadily louder, a deep roar that vibrated through the floorboards. She walked to the window, a hopeful smile on her lips. But what she saw made her blood run cold. It wasn't one bike. Or 15. The entire highway was a river of chrome and steel. Hundreds of motorcycles were pulling to a stop, lining the road in a silent, disciplined formation. Evelyn's fear came rushing back. What was this? Had she done something wrong? Neighbors were already peeking from behind their curtains. This looked like an occupation. Just then, Bear emerged from the pack. He walked up her porch steps, a warm, reassuring smile on his face. Evelyn, he said gently. Please don't be alarmed. What is all this? She stammered. Bear gestured to the legion of bikers. Last night, you opened your door to 15 of my brothers. You gave us warmth when we would have frozen. You gave us food when you had little for yourself. You gave us your trust when the world gives us fear. He took a deep breath. In our world, Evelyn, a debt like that is sacred. And the family is here to repay it. Before she could process his words, a large truck pulled up, its back rolling open to reveal lumber, new windows, paint, and tools. The bikers broke formation and began unloading supplies with the efficiency of a trained army. We noticed a few things last night, Bear said softly. The draft from that window. The leak under the sink. The missing shingles. He smiled. We're here to fix your house, Evelyn. Tears welled in her eyes. A team of men was already on her roof, tearing off old shingles. Another group was carefully removing drafty window frames. The sound of hammers and saws replaced the intimidating rumble of engines. Then, another man walked up holding an envelope. Ma'am, he said respectfully. When Bear called, the word spread. We took up a collection. It's what we do for family. He handed her the thick envelope. This should take care of that mortgage. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a check for an amount that made her gasp. It was more than enough. It was freedom. She looked from the check to the army of men working on her home, tears now streaming down her cheeks. I don't know what to say, she cried. You don't have to say anything, Bear replied, his voice thick with emotion. You already said it all when you opened your door. Instead of a patch, which was against their traditions, the story says Bear presented her with a wooden plaque. Burned into the oak was the club's insignia, and beneath it, the words, "This property is under the protection of the Hells Angels MC. Our friends live here." While the Hells Angels are a real club, there are no credible news reports that confirm this specific event, making it more of a modern-day fable. This means you're never alone again, Evelyn, Bear explained. This tells everyone that this house, and the woman in it, are part of our family. Evelyn spent the day in a joyous shock, making coffee and sandwiches for the men who were rebuilding her home and her life. By sunset, the work was done. The house stood proud and renewed. Bear gave her a hug. We'll be back to check on you, you hear? Evelyn stood on her brand new porch and watched the 100 motorcycles roar to life. This time, the sound wasn't frightening. It was the sound of loyalty, gratitude, and family. She waved until the last taillight disappeared over the horizon, her heart full to bursting. Conclusion. Whether the story of Evelyn Carter is a documented event or a piece of viral folklore, its message is powerful. A single act of kindness, a door opened in a storm, didn't just save 15 men from the cold. In the legend, it rebuilt a house, paid off a debt, and forged a family in the most unexpected of places. It's a story that teaches us not to judge a book by its cover, or a man by the patch on his jacket. It suggests that compassion is a language everyone understands, and that courage isn't being fearless, but choosing to act in spite of fear. Evelyn Carter thought she was just offering shelter from a storm, but in doing so, she found shelter too, in the hearts of 100 men who would forever see her as their angel. CTA, Call to Action. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and share. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories that prove kindness is the greatest currency we have.